As we enter into the adult world, we all look for adventure. These adventures take us to new places. They show us new experiences, good and bad, and they bring us together with new people. Some people will be friends for life. You will carry them forward with you forever. Others will want to take from you whatever they can. Your money, your body, even your life. This is the case of Grace Millane. Viewer discretion is advised for this educational documentary. Welcome back to CASE Documentaries. I bring you true crime, disturbing stories and other things that you may later regret knowing with regular uploads every week. Please do join the quickly growing, incredibly supportive CASE family by hitting subscribe now and turning on notifications. Remember, choosing to be kind can save a life in many ways. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with me. Our love and respect goes out to those that knew and loved Grace and all those affected by this case. Grace Emmy Rose Millane was born in Essex, England in 1996. She was born to parents David and Gillian. She was a family girl at heart. She was the youngest of 3 siblings and had 2 older brothers, Michael and Declan, who doted on her. In 2018, she graduated from the University of Lincoln with a degree in advertising and marketing. Her life was just beginning, and she was excited to live it to the fullest. She had saved up for a year-long backpacking tour after her graduation, ready for an adventure before she started the next phase of her life. In October 2018, she travelled to South America for 6 weeks before landing in Peru. She was travelling alone, but she was never truly alone. She met up with other travellers along the way and was keen to share her journey with everyone back home. In November of that year, 21-year-old Grace arrived in Auckland, New Zealand. She checked into the base backpackers hostel on Queen Street and got ready for her next adventure. It was December 1st, 2018. A Saturday evening. Grace left the hostel just before 6 p.m. and headed out into the city centre. She was dressed up in a knee-length black dress, white shoes with a handbag tucked under her arm. She was meeting someone she had matched with on Tinder. Initially, she was reluctant to meet up, but after some more talking, she had come around to the idea. Drinks sounded good. Grace met her date at Sky City, an entertainment complex with bars, restaurants and a casino. It was busy, lively and the perfect place for a first date with a stranger. She was doing all the right things. By all accounts, the evening was going well. She texted her friend Amina back home saying, "I click with him so well. He's an oil manager. He lives in a hotel." After 9:30 p.m, they both left the bar, arm in arm, and headed down the street. The next day was Grace's 22nd birthday. Her family and friends at home were sending messages and reaching out to her over social media, but Grace, unusually, wasn't responding to anyone. Her 2 phones were going straight to voicemail. Her brother Declan said she had been bombarding them with details and pictures of her trip so far, and with no response from her on her birthday, this was immediately alarming. Grace was a home bird, and this was a huge red flag. Her parents contacted the Auckland police and reported her as missing. Initially, the police didn't suspect any foul play. They had reached out to the hostel Grace was staying at. The hostel confirmed that she had not checked back in the night of December 1st. But she was a young woman. She was travelling. The majority of her belongings were still at the hostel. Maybe she had just stayed with some new friends and forgotten to contact her parents. But fortunately for detectives, it didn't take long to track down where Grace had been on a Saturday evening. This was due to the vast amounts of CCTV from around the city. The mystery man she was spotted with that night was quickly identified. This man was Jesse Kempson, a 26-year-old residing at the City Life Hotel in Auckland. As the last known person seen with Grace that night, the police knew that he was the man they needed to help fill in the gaps in the investigation. On the same day that Grace was reported missing, Jesse was asked to come into the station to answer some routine questions. "Tell us about Grace," the police told Jesse. "So I was talking to Grace on Tinder. We'd matched on Friday. I saw that we'd matched the next day on Saturday, and then we met at Sky City. When asked whose idea it was to head for Sky City, he said it was his. He was concerned about catfish online and wanted to feel safe. And there he was safe."
What did you tell her about yourself?
I just told her where my family were from. I told her what I did for work. And then that was it. Mm-hmm. I asked her if she's visiting Sydney, and she said she'd love to.
How did the evening pan out?
Yeah, pretty good.
He claimed that it was a good date. Nothing out of the ordinary had happened. It ended nicely with a hug and a kiss on the cheek. They made a plan for the following day and eventually parted ways at around 10 p.m. Jesse then described his route home, saying he walked down Queen Street. Wait, no, Victoria Street, straight down to the bottom and then left and head towards the viaduct. When he had tried to message Grace the next day on Tinder, he noticed that Grace had unmatched him. The romance was over before it ever could have begun. He hadn't seen Grace again since, and neither had anyone else. On December the 7th, David, Grace's father, made an emotional plea for help.
As you know, Grace has been missing for several days. We last had contact with her on Saturday the 1st of December, and as a family we've been extremely concerned for her welfare. Grace is a lovely, outgoing, fun-loving, family-orientated daughter. Grace has never been out of contact for this amount of time. We are all extremely upset, and it is very difficult at this time to fully describe the range of emotions we are going through. I would like to take this opportunity to appeal to anybody who has seen, spoken to or come into contact with Grace over the last few days, and to come forward with any detail, no matter how small, and contact the investigation team.
As police continued to search tirelessly, they looked to corroborate Jesse's story, but things weren't adding up. As the officers combed CCTV, frames from the City Life Hotel were raising more questions than they were answering. In 6 terabytes of CCTV data lay what really happened that night, and a sinister and disturbing picture was slowly put together. Jesse claimed the pair had parted ways on the street, that he had headed down Victoria Street alone, straight to the bottom, took a left and headed towards the viaduct, but the CCTV said otherwise. Jesse and Grace arrived at the City Life Hotel, together, at around 11 p.m. They exited the lift on Jesse's floor. They looked happy, cheerful, excited. But strangely, this was the last image of Grace that the police could find. They couldn't place her leaving the hotel the morning after. They could, however, place Jesse. On what was Grace's birthday, cameras picked up Jesse leaving the hotel. They tracked his every move over the coming hours. He left the hotel in the morning and went shopping to buy a suitcase. He then went to buy some cleaning supplies. Just before noon, he took a taxi to a car rental company. There he rented a red Toyota Corolla. Several hours later, he had another Tinder date. A popular man, it seems. His match later told police that he had made some disturbing comments on the date. The comments that made her feel so uneasy that she declined Jesse's offer. A disturbing offer of a ride in the red Toyota Corolla. She instead made her own way home. After his date, Jesse went into the city centre again, this time to hire a rug doctor. A rug doctor is a carpet cleaning machine. He had some red wine stains that needed cleaning up, he told the staff. He set off back to the city hotel to take care of his stains, and at 9:30 p.m. he loaded 2 suitcases onto a hotel trolley and offloaded them into the red Toyota Corolla he had rented earlier. At around 7 a.m. the next day, he was picked up on camera again, this time buying a shovel. 2 hours later, he was spotted power washing the car before returning it to the rental company. Even without a shred of physical evidence, the CCTV alone painted a disturbing picture. On the 5th of December, the day Grace was reported missing, Jesse was seen visiting various locations and dumping things in bins. Police arrived at the City Life Hotel looking to talk to him, and luckily just as they reached the front desk, Jesse returned to the hotel himself. But after catching sight of the police, he quickly turned around and began walking away, trying to wriggle free from the hook with his head firmly facing the opposite direction. The police, however, saw him, caught him, and brought him in for questioning. This time, though, they were less forgiving, less willing to believe his words. By December the 8th, Jesse's story had drastically changed. This time he said that he and Grace had been having a good time on the date, and had then returned to his hotel room to keep the party going. Amidst flirty text messages exchanged on Tinder, he claimed Grace had brought up 50 Shades of Grey. Jesse went on to tell police that the two had begun having intimate relations, but that Grace wanted to experiment. According to Jesse, she wanted to try bondage. They ended up on the floor and she had asked him to hold her throat. He then went for a shower and fell asleep. When he had awoken the next morning, he realised that Grace was no longer breathing. In a state of shock, he panicked and put her body in a suitcase before later burying it. Whether his story was true or not, the police didn't need to wait any longer. They had their man. On the 8th of December, Jesse Kempson was arrested. Jesse was a 26-year-old man born in Wellington. He moved around frequently as a child due to his parents' separation. He was also a compulsive liar. Jesse would lie about pretty much everything, from being related to a famous rugby player to having cancer. He lied to his employers, landlords, partners, and even his friends and family. His lies would catch up with him frequently, and he would often be evicted from his flats and lose jobs. One former landlord of Jesse described how he claimed to be a professional softball player, someone who had been signed up by New Zealand's national softball team, the Black Sox. Another landlord at the City Life Hotel was told that Jesse was a top manager for Woolworths, but in reality his rent was being paid by state benefits. Jesse's last job was in telephone sales, but not surprisingly he was dismissed due to his lies. He was dismissed on the same day that he met Grace Millane, on December the 1st. It didn't take long for the police to start searching a scenic area near the Waitakere Reservoir later that day. And just 10 yards from the road, they found a body. Sadly, it was Grace. After the formal identification process, the grief was shared throughout the nation, and thousands of people paid tribute to Grace and held visuals. New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern publicly apologised to Grace's parents. She offered her and her country's full support.
Firstly, I cannot imagine the grief of her family and what they will be experiencing and feeling right now. And my thoughts and prayers are with her father, David, who is in the country, her mother, Gillian, who cannot be here, and her wider family, friends, and loved ones. You know, from the Kiwis I have spoken to, there is this overwhelming sense of hurt and shame that this has happened in our country, a place that prides itself on our hospitality, on our manaakitanga, especially to those who are visiting our shores. And so, on behalf of New Zealand, I want to apologise to Grace's family. Your daughter should have been safe here, and she wasn't, and I'm sorry for that. I've advised the family through the police that if there is anything we can do to assist, we are here to help with that.
On the 10th of December, just 5 days after Grace was reported missing, Jesse Kempson was formally charged with the murder. His master plan, his web of lies, crumbled around him. Yet he still pleaded not guilty. At his court appearance, he was granted an interim name suppression to ensure a fair trial. The trial began in November and lasted just 3 weeks. Throughout the trial, Jesse remained stony-faced. He showed no emotion, occasionally glancing down at court papers or holding his head in his hands. Jesse's defense team argued that Grace's death was caused by nothing more than consensual intimate acts that had gone horribly wrong. They claimed that Grace had engaged in intimate encounters like this before. This was a simple yet tragic case of an adult misadventure, and after it happened, Jesse just panicked. It was not a murder but an accidental death. The prosecution argued otherwise. They said that Jesse did not panic and this was not simply something that went wrong. It was very clearly deliberate and intentional. Following an autopsy, a pathologist confirmed that Grace had been throttled. They said that she had bruises on her arms and chest. These were said to be consistent with being pinned down with considerable force. They would have required a lot of pressure on the neck, and this pressure must have lasted between 4 and 5 minutes to be enough to end her life. While Jesse stated that he had gotten into the shower before falling asleep after their night together, his phone history suggested otherwise. At around 1:30 a.m. on Sunday, as Grace lay lifeless in his room, Jesse browsed the internet. He looked up how to make the hottest fire. He searched for flesh-eating birds and tried to learn about the Waitakere Rangers, the people that patrolled the location where he would later bury the body. Jesse then trawled through adult websites. Lastly, he took several intimate photos of Grace's body. This really was the final nail in his coffin. Despite his protests of innocence, on the 22nd of December 2019, Jesse Kempson was found guilty of ending Grace's life. The judge told him, "You are a large and powerful man." She was diminutive in those circumstances. Due to the highly publicised trial, 2 women had gone to the police. When they saw blurred images of Jesse, they recognised him. They both had their own horrific stories to tell. In October 2020, an ex-partner spoke of the physical, intimate, emotional and financial maltreatment she had suffered while with him. He would hold sharp implements to her neck, throttle her, force her to perform intimate acts, and drain her bank account. In November 2020, he was put on trial yet again, this time for violating a young British tourist he had met on Tinder 8 months before he had met Grace. He was found guilty in both cases. For the ending of Grace's life, he was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum non-parole period of 17 years. For the 2 2020 cases, he received a total of 11 years. These were run concurrently alongside the sentence he received for the murder of Grace. Do you think the punishment fits the crime here? What do you think could be done to avoid something like this happening again in the future? Let me know down in the comments. Please do hit like if you appreciate what I'm doing here. Thank you to everyone in the Dark Case crew. You too can become a channel member for just 99p. A huge thank you to my patrons. Your support makes a massive difference. You too can support my work and be thanked in every video for just $5 per month. So a huge thank you to Rachel David, Kathy Green, David James, Addy Alexander, Karen Jones, El Palmieri, James Harrington, Shane Woodward, Faster River, Stacey Krogerus, Summer Chambers, Mona Corona, Cepheid Variable, Anthony Watson, Jason Coward, Garth Impaler, Jeremy Sebranek, Joy Burton, Dawn Crock, Michelle Mims, Natalie Lundquist, and Darlene. Be careful out there, and I'll see you soon.